My name is Rich Reynolds. You may or may not have seen me if you watch Channel 57 in Wisconsin. You have. I'm on there. I also work for Midwest Family Broadcasting and a couple other outlets as well. And on the way over here, I was thinking about how to get this whole thing started, and I wanted to talk a little bit about my journey, I guess, as a libertarian. I thought it was pretty apropos. And it came to me as I was driving that it was actually in 1992 that I first found out and joined the Libertarian Party. And this was back at Illinois State University, and I was a sophomore down there. And my candidates for president at the time, if you might recall 25 years ago, was George Bush the Elder. Is that what he's called now? You also had Bill Clinton, and you had H. Ross Perot. And I thought, you know what? I need to find something else. I need to start looking elsewhere for some kind of political hope, political direction, political guidance, and I decided at that point in time not to be a lemming and find out for myself who I wanted to be. And I found a party that is pro-gun and pro-gay marriage. And I don't know if there's another one out there that is. And I absolutely fell in love with the principles, the thought process of libertarians. And I am proud and honored to be able to be with you today and to be able to kick off this campaign for a man that I've known now for years. I can officially say that, and I believe will be an excellent representative of all of us here in the state of Wisconsin. So again, I want to thank you all for coming out on this gorgeous day as we get this campaign started. For Phil Anderson and Patrick Baird, folks, we got a bunch of speakers for you here today. I would like to start first with a podcaster from Beloit. Please, a warm welcome for Mr. Reese Wood.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to script this. It's a little different, but all right, so 5 years ago, I got involved with the Libertarian Party by doing door hangers for Gary Johnson. That was my idea of getting more involved. And at that point, I had been pretty much convinced that war was the one issue that most of our presidential candidates, our Senate candidates, all the candidates were really able to avoid. And it was also the one issue I think a lot of people wanted to talk about and have a public discussion about. But our libertarian candidates, they were the ones that wanted to talk about that. And at that time, I believe Joe Kexel was running for Senate in Wisconsin. And for me, guys like Joe Kexel got me interested even more in the Libertarian Party by just giving us an option on the ballot. And in 2015, I decided to do my part and kind of try to give back to my community by doing the Beloit podcast, which was focusing on the Beloit community, its people, places, past, present, and future. And that allowed me to interview individuals from the community, business owners, people who had a story to share that they likely weren't able to share in the mainstream media or elsewhere. And that actually turned into another opportunity that brought me to Janesville Community Radio, the hometown of Paul Ryan. Do we have any fans here? All right. So I was on community radio 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9, the morning drive, which was pretty much a childhood dream of mine, and it was a great experience. But I brought Phil on. I had the chance to bring Phil on for some interviews, which provoked a response from Ron Johnson, and also later I got Russ Feingold. But the difference between the candidates seems how I had a unique window into that Senate race. I think there was not only a noticeable difference to libertarians, but let's talk about what I thought was the unique difference. I believe I followed up with Phil, got him on the morning show, probably one of my first weeks on the show, and Ron very shortly afterwards. I might have even got a response from Ron first. In terms of representing themselves, that's what I wanted to focus on. Phil, Ron, and Russ, and how they represented themselves in their interviews. Ron, he was happy to come back 8 times. Every interview had to be scripted. I got to speak between his assistant, Russ, the same thing. His assistant handled everything scripted. Phil, a little different. Phil didn't have an assistant controlling all of his speeches on radio and broadcast opportunities. Phil's one candidate that seemed like a real person when I talked to him. He wasn't afraid to talk about the topics that libertarians want to talk about: life, liberty, property. And the unique opportunity that I did get with Ron Johnson to ask him any off-the-script questions was asking him about his opinion on third-party inclusion. And he was a fan, he was in favor of it. But when asked about his third-party opponent, that's where the conversation usually ended. And I believe I lost Ron Johnson and my opportunities to interview him when I asked him to do a debate with Phil and Russ, a third-party inclusive debate, and never heard back from Ron after that, or Russ. Surprising. But also, I think Phil was the guy in that election that kept me interested, like Joe had in the previous election. Joe gave us candidates on the ballot that we could vote for when there was no one else. And that's something I'm going to be doing for the 45th District. I'm going to give them the option to vote for something different. Seems how the last 2 elections we've had an unopposed candidate, Democrat twice elected. Living in that district, I don't feel represented, and I think the 400 plus interviews I've done in the last 2 years, a lot of those people have also felt underrepresented. So I'm going to offer that option to the people of the 45th District of Wisconsin. That's Broadhead, Judah, Orfordville, Albany, Evansville, Beloit. That's part of Greene and Rock County. And I told you guys I was doing this scripted. Not professionally, but thanks for bearing with me. A little bit more about myself. I'm a 31-year-old father. I consider myself working class. And I can tell you I'm not here because I can afford to be here. I'm here because I can't afford to not be here, and I think a lot of other people who are underrepresented also cannot afford to be here. And those people deserve representation. All kinds of people of diverse ages, races, ethnicities. I think a lot of people are going unrepresented, especially in the 45th. And what do I care about? I care about debt. I care about all the spending going on, the costs. Not only the financial costs, but the social costs that we never really get a chance to discuss or quantify. Debt racks up with all the things that we'd like to see happen, and we'd all like to see positive change, but when it's in the name of racking up more debt, it does have a later social cost. We don't have discussions about that very often. I think that has to do with representation. I won't put you guys to sleep. I'm going to let you go to the next speaker here, but I'm really proud to be up here among some other young faces, and I'm enthused to see where this election year will take us. Thanks to everybody for coming out.
All right, we'll keep the line moving here in just a second, as the next speaker just told me he's a student at UW-Platteville. He's also a member of the U.S. Army Reserve, and I was thinking back to my time when I was a student at Illinois State, and then I was also part of the Army ROTC. One of the things that kind of drew me to the Libertarian Party was anti-interventionism, I guess, is a great way to put it. But staying out of people's business, and why should we put soldiers in harm's way? for such a thing. And a young man like this, our next speaker, is reason why. Soldiers do not need to be overseas right now. Back then it was Iraq, it was Somalia, it was Bosnia. People in my unit, once I was stationed at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, who actually had to go to Bosnia and Somalia, and we had a gunner in our artillery unit who actually died in Somalia. And I still, for the life of me, cannot figure out why. I would love for that stuff to end. It ends when you begin to stop voting for the same old. And when you vote for something that will actually make a difference and bring our troops home and out of harm's way and out of unnecessary situations. It ends when we stop sending guys like Ian overseas. Let's bring him in right now. From UW-Platteville, Army Reservist, Ian Siren.
I won't be making this too long. I've just prepared something a little short here for us, but so my journey to getting to this point has been a very long one, starting with me at being a young person, a Republican in a very conservative family, and growing up with a father who recognizes his beliefs, but encouraging us to believe something different than he did. And as I grew up, I saw my sister focus in on the Libertarian Party, and I listened to her, and I realized what she was saying made sense. And all this culminated in just a couple of weeks after that, and it's all come down to now. It's come down to several weeks ago when the student organization I'm involved in at UW-Platteville, Young Americans for Liberty, hosted Phil Anderson and Patrick Baird discuss libertarianism and their run for office in 2018. Mr. Anderson and Mr. Baird brought to our attention that the party was still in search for a candidate in District 49. And after many fingers were pointed in my direction, and some discussion was done between myself and Phil, I was asked if I would consider running for the position. At first, I didn't think he could possibly be serious. Little did I know at that point, Mr. Anderson truly believed in the idea that a 20-year-old college student could run for office, an idea that I now believe in myself. My name is Ian Siren. I am the Libertarian candidate for State Assembly in District 49. I was born and raised in West Bend, but currently attend school at UW-Platteville, double majoring in accounting and in business administration. And as mentioned, I'm also an Army Reservist. I specialize in carpentry and masonry with the Army. Many of you may be wondering why a 20-year-old should be trusted with this campaign. Well, what I may lack in age and experience, I make up for in energy. Perseverance, as learned in my time with the Army Reserves. And an ability not only to hear, but to listen to what people have to say to me. And a passion and drive for learning things and seeking out answers. Over the next year, I hope not only to prove to each of you here that I am the correct choice for the candidate, but also to bring results and to win this election in District 49 for the people of District 49. Thank you.
Okay, turn that up a little bit. Hopefully there's no feedback. Hopefully everybody can still hear us really good. So, again, thank you all for coming out. We couldn't have had a more gorgeous day. You know, one of the things that we talk about as libertarians, and I was just talking about, was ending wars. There's other wars that are going on that don't necessarily involve bullets. And that's the wars that partisan politics brings. One of the things that I know Phil Anderson would love to stop is the partisan politics that are broken, not only in our nation, but here in the state of Wisconsin. You have politicians that pit the poor versus the rich, black versus white, gay versus straight, transgendered versus non-transgendered, and whatever issue that you want to bring up. They like to pigeonhole everybody as you must either be a Democrat or a Republican, a liberal or a conservative, and it just isn't true. The option that breaks that mold is the Libertarian Party. That's what we are here for today. That is what we stand for, and we have a candidate who embodies that in Phil Anderson. All of these candidates who are also speaking today embody such measures as well. Our next speaker, case in point as well, he is running in the 56th Assembly District. He is from Winneconne. Please give a nice round of applause for David Lautenschlager.
Thank you, Rich. Like he said, my name is David Lautenschlager, and I'm running for the 56th Assembly District against Dave Murphy here. I'm running today in this campaign because I believe in Wisconsin. I believe in the citizens of Wisconsin, and I believe that the best path towards innovation and success in our state is to liberate that in the individuals of our state. For too long, we've seen these two parties not only incarcerate the people of our state, but drive up the tax burden on the people of our state. We were promised fiscal conservancy with this current administration, and what we wound up with was the fourth largest incentive program, subsidies program for this Foxconn deal here. It's also the largest investment any state has given to any foreign corporation. Now, I love to see free trade and open borders here with bringing these into our state. But to leave this at the cost of each one of our citizens, I don't believe is okay, and Representative Murphy backed this 100%. This is a deal that has brought us almost 7 times the national average for any other.
What the Libertarian Party stands for. Our next speaker is actually the state secretary of the Libertarian Party. He is running in the 40th Assembly District. Let's give it up for Tyler Dinky.
All right, I just wanted to start out with saying that if you take this total state spending in the state of Wisconsin, roughly $37 billion in the next in the fiscal year, and you take how many men, women, and children are in the state of Wisconsin, it comes out to about $6,300 that each man, woman, and child spends as a part of the state budget. And I would just like to allow the people to choose where their money goes to, what they want to do with their the money that they earn, the money that they cause to be spent. I'd like to see us as a people be able to choose what we do with our lives, with our personal lives, with our money, with every day of our life. How can we reduce the government's interference in our lives? How can we allow the government, how has it that we came to such a place where we no longer get to choose what products we sell, what products we buy? I just, in my work, I find every day products that I'm not able to sell to my customers because a state government says, I don't want that to be legal in that state. But it's stopping us from being able to earn a living. It's stopping us from being able to be the people that we want to be. I really just want to see us reduce the government's spending, reduce the government's unprofessional and terrible abuse of putting debt on our children. And I really would like to see the government's interference in our lives reduced. Phil Anderson has been a great voice for reducing government's interference in our lives, and I just want to encourage as many people as we can to get active. Your vote does matter, and your voice does matter. What you want to do with your vote matters, and what you want to do with your money matters. What you want to do with your life matters. So much so that we need to remove any interference of that from our lives as much as we can. And I'm running for Wisconsin State Assembly District 40 to make that happen as much as I can. Thank you.
Kind of taken with Tyler there, you could tell that he speaks from the heart, and I think That's one of the things that I love about the candidates and love about the Libertarian Party. A lot of it does come straight from the heart, and that heart comes from a real belief in government. It comes in a belief of freedom. One of the things that I think some parties and some politicians kind of use as a punchline are things like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And for some people, they take it kind of seriously. That's kind of our birthright. And I think that is one of the things that libertarians believe in more than anything else, especially that liberty part and the freedom. So many times I'll see on TV, they're talking about government shutdowns. They're going to shut it down if they don't pass a budget or do this or that. And I say to myself, great, shut it down. We're going to be all right. And we're going to reduce it to non-essential government employees. And my next thought is, why am I footing the bill with taxpayer dollars for non-essential government employees? How about just hiring essential government employees? Wouldn't that be a nice way to cut the spending that we do here in our country? So many things that make me honored to be here and honored to continue to introduce our speakers. Our next speaker actually is from Neenah. He is running for Winnebago County Board, so a bit of a drive. So let's hear it for Mr. Brian Defferting.
I'm Brian Defferting, and I'm running for Winnebago County Board. A lifelong resident of the Fox Valley in Wisconsin, born and raised in Appleton, currently live in Neenah, have been living in Neenah since 2011. The common question is, why county board? Why not something bigger? And it ties into something that I think a lot of people in the party have already been familiar with, but I have to kind of entertain you with this story. I bought a house in 2011 in Neenah, and I own 2 dogs. I own 2 pit bulls, and my house is on a corner lot, and I wanted to build a fence so that the dogs can play without having to be tied to any cords, and so that they can play freely. And one of my dogs is half pit bull, half Great Dane, very large dog, and so I wanted to build a fence in my yard. And so I was making plans, making a list of what things I need to get at the hardware store. And I was talking to one of my coworkers who was also from Neenah, and he was like, "Oh, you're gonna have to get a permit for that." Why? It's a fence. Why do I need a permit to build a fence on my own yard? What am I harming? I'm not harming anyone. But I looked up the statutes, and sure enough, I have to get a permit to build a fence on my own yard. Not just that, but there's a height limit to what I need to build my fence on my own yard. And the height limit is 3 feet. Okay, 3 feet for a wood, 4 foot for chain link. I wanted a wood fence, but I wanted it to be 4 feet. And the city said, no, you can't have a 4-foot fence on your own yard. I think a lot of people don't realize, we talk a lot about tyranny coming from Washington, D.C. or from here. It doesn't necessarily come from there. It comes from your neighbor. It comes from your local government. It comes from your county. It comes from this council of elders that thinks that they can control over you. And we enable that control. We need to stop enabling that control. So we have to get involved in local government. Otherwise, local government will get involved in us. And, I'm not a lawyer. I don't really know too much about law. But I've come to find out that when it comes to lawyers and when it comes to law and when it comes to politicians, they kind of hope that you obey and that you just kind of, grumble about it, complain about it, and then go on about your day. That we need to fight it. We need to get involved in the system. And, I am a tax-paying citizen of Winnebago County. Have been for many, many years. And I'm here to tell them that this cannot stand. And so this is my time to get involved with them because they got involved with me.
All right, just about the time that we get to this ticket that we are all here to kick off here the campaign for the 2018 gubernatorial race. And as we get to the ticket, I'm going to introduce Patrick Baird. Before I do that, I got to meet Patrick a few months ago on Phil's Free People show. And I don't know if you've listened to that in the podcast and watched it on Facebook Live, but that's where I met Patrick. And they brought me on, Phil asked me to be a guest to talk about sports and kind of how they intersect. And of course, the big topic now with sports and government and pop culture, how it's kind of intersecting, is the whole taking a knee controversy in the National Football League. And I kind of attack that as the way I kind of attack everything. If you're asking for an opinion on it, you know what? I think the libertarian kind of thought is great. It's a peaceful protest. They're exercising their rights. At the same time, if an NFL owner wants to not pay that player or use that player, as long as it doesn't affect the collective bargaining agreement, great. That's their business as well. And if you as a fan want to tune out of the National Football League because you don't like it, then great. We're all exercising our rights. And it's a beautiful, wonderful thing. And all of that stuff is what makes America great. I think a lot of us have lost our way on that. We get divided and we're told we got to fit into one category or the other. Or if you like the people that are taking a knee, you're not patriotic. I served my country. I'm fine with them taking a knee. It's okay. They're not doing anything that's offending any one of you. And if it does, that's okay too. Don't watch. All of that is good American stuff. It's stuff that the Libertarian Party stands for. It's not a party of separatist politics. So that's why I was on the Free People show. That's how I got to meet Patrick Baird. And let's get to this ticket right now and the reason why you're here. The kickoff for this campaign as I introduce to you the next Lieutenant Governor of the great state of Wisconsin, Patrick Baird.
Thank you, Rich. And I'd like to especially thank all of you who traveled here today to join us. I really appreciate that, to see some friendly, smiling faces out there. And I'm definitely would like to also thank our candidates that have joined Phil and I here today. Ladies and gentlemen, these are just the declared candidates for 2018. We've got a much longer list of people who've expressed interest in running for office, different offices throughout the state. There's a ton of offices that we still need to fill. So anybody who's interested, we'd love to talk to you, but we will be providing you a full slate of candidates in 2018, a real alternative throughout the state to the two-party duopoly. Now, a few months ago, Phil asked me to join him on the ticket to be his running mate as Lieutenant Governor, and I pretty much immediately said yes. And there was two reasons why I said yes to Phil. The first reason was I really saw this as a statewide campaign as a great opportunity to put libertarian principles into action, to not just talk about liberty, not just argue about liberty, not just complain about the things that we think the government does and shouldn't do, but to go out there among the people of the state of Wisconsin and talk to them, listen to them, talk to them about liberty, listen to what their concerns may be, and to provide answers that show them that when people have more choice in their life, when people have more freedom, when people have more money in their pocket because the government isn't spending it on something, people will respond positively to that. And I think that's what I'm looking forward to here in the coming year, is having that conversation with ordinary Wisconsin residents and learning some things, but also spreading that message of liberty. And one of the ways that I think that we can spread that message of liberty, all of us, candidates, and anyone else who's just talking to your friends and neighbors about the value of it, is to talk about how specifically things that the governor of the state of Wisconsin, in conjunction with a Democrat and a Republican legislature, whoever it may be, we're realistic. We know that we're in 2019. Governor Phil Anderson is not going to have a whole bunch of libertarians. He might have a few, might have some in there with him if we do our job. But we're going to have to deal with the Democrats and the Republicans to get anything done. And that's one of the great advantages of being an independent party, is we can do that. But there are some things that as libertarians that we are going to push for. And the first thing that we're going to push for is more local control. Brian did a great job talking about building his fence in his yard and how local government can interfere with your liberty. But local government has its own problem, and it's the state of Wisconsin telling it what to do. We need to get the state of Wisconsin out of the business of local communities, whether it's local counties, whether it's local municipalities, whether it's schools and school boards. Local people in their communities know what's best for their communities, and they should be given the freedom and the opportunity to choose different paths or different priorities in their communities based on whatever they feel is best for their community. And they don't need the state of Wisconsin looking over their shoulder, telling them what to do, giving them money with strings attached. Just ask any of your local representatives. Ask your local county board member, ask your mayor, ask city hall, ask people on your school board. They'll all tell you the same thing. They wish they didn't have all these unfunded mandates. They wish they didn't have all these strings attached. They wish they didn't have all this interference from the state of Wisconsin. And as governor, Phil Anderson will work to eliminate all of those unfunded mandates, those strings, and all that interference from the state, so that every community in this state can progress and can focus on the things that they think are most important. That's our first goal. Our second goal is to grow Wisconsin from within. Everybody's seen the Foxconn deal. $3 billion, that's billion with a B, that's being given to one corporation. Your money, your tax dollars, being given to this one corporation that may or may not produce 13,000 jobs, may or may not pollute the environment and get away with it, may or may not return money back to the taxpayer, more than the $3 billion. We think there's a better way to do this. We think that we need to focus not on competing with other states for foreign corporations and big companies that are trying to get a bidding war going for their companies, for their jobs. Let's work with the companies that are right here in Wisconsin right now. The existing companies that need a break from state taxation, from state regulation, from state interference in what they're doing. We need to encourage entrepreneurs to start new businesses. We need companies to be creative in creating new products and expanding their markets. All of that is right here, already here in the state. And on top of that, if we do a good job in creating a real positive business environment here in the state of Wisconsin, we can get companies from outside coming here, not because we drive them to come here, but because they want to come here, because it's a great place to live. We've got a great educated workforce, and we've got a great quality of life here in the state of Wisconsin, except for about 2 months in the wintertime when it's a little bit of a challenge. But other than that, I think we would all agree we love living in the state of Wisconsin, and I think a lot of people in California, in Illinois, in Texas, and anywhere else, given a chance, I think they would agree that the quality of life, the cost of living here would be very attractive. So let's forget these crony capitalist deals and let's focus on building from within. And then the last thing, our last thing that we're going to fight for, we want to get rid of the state income tax, period. No more state income tax. We're not talking about a tax cut, which is a bunch of phony baloney nonsense. They just shuffle the deck around and they take this deduction away and add this one. Tax cuts are BS. they're still spending more every year, and it doesn't matter which party's in power, whichever party is in power, they've been spending more every year. Spending is the problem, not your tax rates. So obviously, Phil will do a great job as governor with that veto pen, cutting spending. We'll work with the legislature if they present spending, real spending cuts to us. But we want to get rid of the income tax completely, because income tax, unlike some of the other taxes we have, consumption taxes, it's a blank check. The government can take those income tax dollars and spend it on anything that they want. You don't have any input on any of that. If we get rid of that tax, we get rid of the fuel that drives increased spending, increased regulation, and greater interference in the lives of your average Wisconsinite, and interference in local government, and interference in business. So now, and people are going to say, well, how do we fund everything? I don't know. How does the state of Texas do it? How does the state of Washington do it? How does Florida do it? None of those states have an income tax. They still have roads, they still have schools, they still have police departments and fire departments. And somehow they find a way to fund those things without an income tax. So those are the three basic principles that Phil and I are going to run on. There's going to be a lot of other things that we'll talk about in more detail. We're more than happy to talk to anybody who has any questions about that. But by focusing on these three principles, we think we can present an agenda to the citizens of the state of Wisconsin that is relatable to their lives and makes them see how liberty and less government interference in your life can be a positive thing and actually can work. Now, I said there was two reasons why I said yes to running with Phil. The other reason was Phil. I've known Phil for a while now. I was his campaign manager for his Senate campaign last year, so I worked alongside him while he was running for office, and I know there's no better candidate than Phil. Phil is an awesome candidate. He works hard. He listens. He's a good man, and I was very eager to be honored to run alongside of him as his running mate for governor. And I can tell you this, Libertarian Party Governor Phil Anderson will not only be a revolutionary figure here in Wisconsin, I think he will be a national beacon for liberty, encouraging people around the country and making them understand we're not crazy, we're not goofy, we don't have, we're not just a bunch of people that want to smoke weed. We believe in simple things, like leave me alone, let me decide for myself what I do and what my children get to do and what my schools get to do. To me, that seems like common sense, and there's nobody better that I know than Phil Anderson in explaining exactly why that is common sense that anybody here in the state of Wisconsin can understand and appreciate. So ladies and gentlemen, I give you the next governor of the state of Wisconsin, Phil Anderson.
So as I was getting ready for this event and this speech, the people that know me best suggested that I write out a speech. Primarily because if I don't, there's no telling when I'll stop talking. So that's what we're going to do today. My name is Phil Anderson, and I'm running for governor of the beautiful state of Wisconsin as a libertarian. And I approve this message. Can everyone hear me? I don't think I have any problem with volume, so I'm not going to worry about turning off the microphone. Why are we all here today? You don't need to raise your hand. Why are we here today? I know why we're here today. Because we refuse to live in a bubble, in an echo chamber, understanding and believing in what we know to be right and true and best, but also refusing to merely remain comfortable among others who agree with us. There are many libertarians who express their beliefs online, in social media, in clubs, local affiliates, chat rooms, blah, blah, blah. There's lots of that. There's plenty of that. That's all well and good as far as it goes. A libertarian can be inspired by, I don't know, a Tom Woods podcast, a Jeffrey Tucker speech, a Murray Rothbard book, the founding fathers of this country, the Constitution, John Locke, Frederick Bastiat, there are many others. There are many current libertarians who became libertarians because of Ron Paul. Raise your hand if you're a libertarian because of was Ron Paul instrumental in being a libertarian? Not that many. Well, there's more. Now let me tell you why Ron Paul is important. Actually, maybe the only reason he is so important. He ran for office. He ran for office. He kept running for office. Now, he did run as a Republican, and I forgive him for that. I'm partial to the Libertarian Party, and I have pretty good arguments as to why libertarians should run as libertarians, but that's for another speech. My point is that Ron Paul is important not because he's brilliant, because there are a lot of brilliant libertarians. Some of them spoke right before me, actually. Not because he's articulate, because he's not always very articulate if you listen to him speak. He is important because he's an apostle for liberty. He walks and talks among the enemy, among the uninformed, among those who connive and berate and cheat him, spit in his face rather than open their minds and consider the truth. He walks among the bought and paid for, and therefore so must we. We know what it's like. We libertarians know what it's like, and it's actually fitting that we're kicking off this campaign season in this spot right here, because every Saturday, spring, summer, and fall, the Libertarian Party of Dane County has a booth right over here in the center of very progressive, not libertarian-friendly Madison, Wisconsin. They promote liberty and truth, pass out pamphlets, free buttons. By the way, there's free buttons at back. Chris has free buttons if anybody wants them. He's not going to go home until you take one. They suffer sneers, dirty looks, derisive comments, and occasionally, especially at the Marijuana Harvest Fest, actual literal spitting in our faces. We do this every week because we love peace and liberty. And despite the interference, despite being illegally excluded from the debate stage by the Wisconsin Broadcasters Association, who, by the way, their office is right at the block, 44 East Mifflin, who may be protesting there in a few months, we want our fellow Wisconsinites to enjoy the peace, prosperity, and privacy that will wash over our state if we can at least win a majority of voters to the idea that the best government is the least government, and that they have the right, that we all have the right, the expertise and the energy to govern ourselves as individuals and as local communities. We believe in people, and because of that belief, we don't want to power over them, we want to empower them. It has become the common practice of the two big parties to play identity politics. We're all familiar with identity politics, right? They highlight the differences between us. They attempt to sow suspicion and envy, fear and loathing, to drive people toward the worst in human nature in order to get their votes and thereby control them. They practice the old imperial tactics of the Belgians in Rwanda and the British in India, where they took, moved in places where people were getting along just fine, found differences between people, and made a big deal about it to the point where the people that live there were at each other's throats. And look at our environment right now in the media and in our lives, in our workplaces. It's not okay to talk politics anymore, not even politely, because people hate that. If you represent a certain opinion, they hate you. It's no wonder that these parties attract the sort of people who will say anything to get elected, bend any ethical constraint to get a donation, sell the power they accrue to the highest bidder. Politics in America and in Wisconsin has become a sick cycle of misdirection, deception, deflection. And I, as a libertarian and a resident of Wisconsin and a candidate for governor, take exception to all that. Libertarian candidates offer a rejection of that cycle and of that sick culture. My constant message, anyone who knows me knows I've been talking about this since I ran for assembly. My constant message has been that we have much more in common as human beings here and all over the world than the differences that the corrupt parties love to point out. It is time for politics and policies that respect that instead of seeking to bury it. We as libertarians believe in people's and communities' rights to make their own decisions. There's nothing more fair, nothing more humane, more accountable and transparent. I can't believe that Democrats and Republicans still use the words accountable and transparent in their campaign speeches and that people still believe them. But this is a way we can be more accountable and more transparent than they are. Furthermore, and finally, we understand as libertarians, and I understand as your candidate for governor, that a truly unselfish belief in the principles of liberty require action. Patrick Barrett, my running mate, mentioned that. I'd like to highlight that. Action is important. Because a truly unselfish understanding and care for not only ourselves, but for our friends and neighbors and society requires action. A truly caring and loving regard for not only the present, but also the future requires action. Not just words, blog posts, etc. Action. Not Facebook posts, not clever tweets, not luxury cruises with like-minded people. I know there are people who are going to get that reference. Not vacations in Acapulco with like-minded people. Other people watching this will get that reference. Not reading a book or even writing a book. Action means running for office. And I'm honored and grateful for the candidates we have here with us today, as Patrick mentioned, as well as those who couldn't join us. I'm going to name a few because we do have a pretty big slate of candidates running already. Matt Buckman running for State Assembly in District 7. Mike Hammond running in Assembly District 6. Rick Braun in District 14. Larry Kaufman running for Congress in District 1. Jake Braun running for Congress in District 7. Liam Coughlin running for Congress in District 5. Nate Gall running for Sawyer County Board. And many others who still haven't decided whether to run or not. We're going to have quite an offering of candidates, of principled, sound human beings on the ballot for people in Wisconsin this election cycle. Action also means volunteering in these campaigns, serving as a treasurer if you don't want to run, hosting events, donating money to our campaigns. We're not afraid to ask for money because what we have is valuable. It's not worthless, it's worth something. Distributing literature, attending events, even going so far as to, please everyone listen, sharing a Facebook post as opposed to just liking it. All of these actions are welcome and necessary. None are too great or too small. It's all hands on deck. Because for those of us up here, and for those of you out there, and all liberty-loving people across the state, it is time to act. We are apostles, but not sent by anyone in particular. We are inspired by the truth. The truth is so compelling that people of good conscience must act. And what is this truth? We listen to Democrats and Republicans talk with all kinds of points and angles on various issues and ways they try to manipulate them. For libertarians, it comes down to a very basic principle. And that is that people, you know if you've heard this before, people have the right to live their lives as they choose, loving whom they choose, raising their children as they choose, expressing themselves, worshiping, loving, trading, defending those rights as they choose, as long as they don't interfere with the rights of other people to do the same thing. It comes down to that. So let's act on this starting now, starting today. Thank you. So just some announcements as we wrap up. We're going to adjourn to a place called The Fountain, which is at 122 State Street, just up the block on the right, for some fellowship after this. Thanks very much to everyone who helped us make this event possible. Thanks to the press for coming. It's fantastic to see you all. We'll do some interviews afterwards. And please join us after, and if you can, volunteer, help in some way what we're trying to do, and that is return government to you from those who work here that are constantly taking it from you. Help us in any way, shape, or form that you can. We'll be very, very grateful. Thank you.
Hey, thank you all for coming. If you haven't checked out the website, please do. It's teamgov.org, gov spelled G-U-V, teamgov.org. And we thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. Hope to see you on the campaign trail. Thanks, everybody.